Hi, and welcome to the Sixth Axis and one of our discussion videos. This time we're taking a look at Ni no Kuni 2 Revenant Kingdom. I'm Dominic Layton, and I am joined by Dave Irwin.
Hello!
Who has been playing the game at an event over the last couple of days. Okay, tell us a bit about the story of Ni no Kuni 2.
Okay, so without giving too much away, the idea is very different from Ni no Kuni 1. Instead of being a young boy transported to a completely foreign world, you take on the role of Evan, who is, let's just say, he's an usurped king from the land of Ding Dong Dell. And
Okay.
during the events that lead up to it, apparently, there is a person called Roland who comes into it, and he sort of becomes the adult protagonist, whereas Evan is the kid protagonist. So they sort of have different perspectives on the events, and so Roland kind of becomes eventually his trusted advisor of some sorts. And we started the session midway through the third chapter. They've gone to a place called Gulpor, which is essentially what happens when people with imagination base something of like a town of Thailand and all of that, all of the stuff that entails, and mixes it with gambling houses and gold and all that. So it's a very weird town.
Sure.
One of the weirdest things about it is all of the major decisions are done by the roll of a dice. So that includes things like, settling scores. If someone's got a grievance with someone else, they can, take them to court, and the court is decided by, or the verdict rather, is decided by the roll of a dice. And also tax laws. So how much tax increases by per month. And it's here that the protagonists discover that essentially the tax rates have been going increasingly higher and higher each month, and people are starting to suspect something, but they can't quite prove it. And events unfold, and there's a conspiracy involved, and it's a very well realized world, and I don't want to give too much away about what happens. I feel as if I've seen way too much of the game's starting locations, as it were.
Okay.
But certainly in terms of character development and the characters that are there, it's pretty good so far, and I'm actually quite intrigued to see how it all plays out.
Brilliant. Okay, so visually, Ni no Kuni obviously drew on Studio Ghibli. Are we getting the same sort of stuff this time out?
So it's not Studio Ghibli that's doing the production. They've moved on to other things, but the original art director has come back for Ni no Kuni 2 and is actually working at level 5 in terms of actually making the game itself and the artistic direction. It's basically an all-star development team of people who did the original Ni no Kuni, so there's a bit of continuity there. And in terms of how it looks, it's very well realised, and particularly Gulpor, the area that they wanted to show off to us the most in the development sessions. It's very elaborate. It's actually a really large place with a lot of nooks and crannies to sort of explore, and colourful characters to talk to, and they're all sort of different anthropomorphic species that have their own distinct character, and one of the funniest things actually is whenever you're in debt in Gulpor, it's fine. You just get saddled with a sort of bloated crow that flies next to you, squawking things like "You owe me money" every 5 seconds. As a constant reminder that you're in debt.
Sounds good.
And it's I can imagine it being quite demoralizing after a while if you're being saddled with this thing. So there's a lot of imagination involved, and like the monster designs are really good. Each of the locations felt unique as I was wandering around.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's certainly got that distinctive style. But yeah, it certainly got that distinctive style.
Brilliant. Are we getting regional accents this time out?
We indeed are. You'll be pleased to know there is a little Welsh sprite thing that follows you around. It's not the same as Drippy.
Right.
This one's called Lofty.
Okay.
And he is very, very Welsh. But there's other things, other types of people as well. In fact, they had some of the voice cast at the event, and a person who played Evan, she told us that she drew inspiration for Evan's voice from basically her children. Leads to her sounding quite like a little boy, which is a bit weird when she's actually doing it in person. But you've also got Roland is actually American, and therefore he has the typical American accent that one would associate with that location. But yeah, everyone's got some form of an accent. I think there was one person that sounded Scouse in there, but I wouldn't be able to say anything up front without properly playing the game as to whether that's the case. But
sure.
Yeah, it's definitely got the sort of regional accents and that sort of thing.
Brilliant. What about combat? They've changed it up this time?
Yeah, so they've changed it quite drastically. So beforehand you had the sort of familiars that, essentially it was like Pokemon. Let's be frank about that. Whereas this time around you have these little sprites called Higgledies, which they sort of aid you in battle, but you have to sort of interact with them. So you wander around the battlefield, a bit like the original, as your main character. And then these circles appear, which if you press a button in the circle, depending on the colour of your Higgledies, they can do things like heal you, make a magical explosion that deals a lot of damage, summon a cannon that sort of fires on people, or monsters even. And yeah, it's all very strange, to be quite honest, in terms of the battle and battle mechanics, and it's actually quite hard to get used to because it's unlike most battle systems. But you do have that sort of magic-based attacks that you can do. There's a magic bar, there's an HP bar, so there's a lot of familiarity. It's just that mastering how you use the Higgledies in combat is probably the biggest hurdle people are going to have. But as soon as they do that, the combat's absolutely fine.
Brilliant. Okay, so the thing that looks the best about this one is the kingdom building. So did you get to try that out?
Yeah, so they actually announced that at the event, which was very surprising. And it seems that a lot of the pieces that we were sort of looking at and wondering, how is this going to work? So like the Higgledies going back to combat, how one obtains them and upgrades them, etc.
Yeah.
It all seems to stem from your kingdom building. So you've got all sorts of buildings you can create using a unique currency called King's Guilder, I think.
Okay.
And essentially that's the money for your kingdom, and it's separate from your actual coffers from beating up monsters. And essentially the idea is you invest in your kingdom, you build structures, you do there's also a load of side quests you can do in the game, which can be anything from beating up a monster or taking on a boss monster that is generated in the world once you take on the quest, or gathering certain items from the overworld, that sort of thing.
Sure.
And the idea is once you complete it, not only do you get like a small reward of, items and money and that, You also get their services, and they will move into your kingdom, and you can then distribute them into the different facilities you create. So, going back to Higgledies, if there's a woman who's lost a scouring pad for some reason, but she wants that particular scouring pad, so you go off, you find it, you eventually come back, and she will move into your kingdom. And if you've got a facility for making Higgledy upgrades and all that, you can put her in there, and she actually has a bonus for that facility because that's what she does. And there's other ones like a blacksmith. If you've got a blacksmithery, and someone says, "Oh, I create weapons, but I want you to do this before I move into your town." As soon as you do done that, you can plonk them in there, and they'll be fine. So there's a lot of ways to upgrade your equipment and upgrade the items that your town sells, and just build a prosperous kingdom. And at first I was thinking, is this a bit too much? But actually thinking about it a bit more as I've been reflecting on the footage that's showing on screen, and just essentially remembering the day and how things were, I actually think this is more important than most people initially give it credit for. So yeah, it's very exciting
Awesome.
if that's the case.
So looking forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of little things that are, certainly enticing me to Ni no Kuni 2. I saw the Skirmish Battles that were in the Gamescom build.
Yeah.
And essentially what they are console-based RTS, but RTS that kind of works with the pad, because most RTS games, you're trying to retrofit what works with a mouse and keyboard onto a control pad, and that never works. How they've done it this time is actually really, really good. They've used it so that you can, all your troops surround Evan, and he leads them into battle, but you can rotate them around him depending on your setup. And you've also got like little abilities. You press a button, you activate abilities for a certain amount of points. You've also got a rallying button where if you hold it for there's a bar that drains, and you can increase the strength of your troops and make it so they don't get too hurt by just basically holding down the button. And if you lose some of your troops, you can just hold circle if you're not in combat, and they start coming back. So yeah, it's a very good mechanic, and it's just one of the major reasons why this is definitely more ambitious than the original Ni no Kuni in terms of gameplay, because it's got more stuff in it. It's trying to do more. The only thing I would say is, even though I like a lot of what I'm seeing and think that it could actually contribute to quite a big game, quite a lot of people might think, "Ooh, is this too much? Is this spoiling the broth somewhat by having too much stuff in it?" So, I mean, we'll see when the game launches whether that's the case, but certainly at this point, I've seen quite a bit of the game now and don't really get that impression, but time will tell.
Brilliant. Well, that sounds amazing. And make sure you stay tuned to the 6th Axis for more on Ni no Kuni 2 Revenant Kingdom. And make sure that you also check out Dave's written preview from the event as well. See you soon.
Bye.